When two corrupt cops corner a black mother and her young daughter at an isolated gas station, they see easy targets: alone, powerless, and afraid. But as their threats escalate, a quiet man steps from the shadows, moving with calm and deadly confidence. He's not just a protective father, but something far more dangerous: a highly trained Delta Force commander. In an instant, the tables turn, and what seemed like routine harassment spirals into a high-stakes standoff. The officers refuse to lose face, sparking a ruthless hunt that could destroy an innocent family forever. But some secrets are explosive, and these officers picked the wrong fight. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The late summer sun painted the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink as Marcus Johnson's SUV cruised down the highway. The warm evening air drifted through the partially opened windows, carrying with it the sweet scent of honeysuckle. In the rearview mirror, Marcus caught glimpses of his 8-year-old daughter Zoe, her face glowing with joy as she hugged the stuffed bear her cousins had given her at the reunion. "That was the best family reunion ever," Zoe declared, bouncing slightly in her seat. "Did you see how high I went on the swing when Uncle James pushed me?" Ava turned in the passenger seat, her warm brown eyes crinkling at the corners as she smiled at their daughter. "I sure did, sweetie. I think you almost touched the clouds." Marcus reached over and squeezed his wife's hand, feeling the familiar comfort of her wedding ring against his palm. "Your mother nearly had a heart attack watching you go that high." "Did not," Ava protested, but her laugh gave her away. "Okay, maybe a little, but our girl's brave and strong, just like her daddy." The setting sun cast long shadows across the dashboard as Marcus noticed the fuel gauge dipping below a quarter tank. Up ahead, a small gas station's fluorescent lights flickered to life against the darkening sky. The sign advertised, "Last stop for 30 miles," in bold red letters. "Perfect timing," Marcus said, signaling to exit. "We should fill up and take a quick break before the final stretch home." The gas station was quiet, with only 2 other cars parked near the convenience store entrance. Marcus pulled up to a pump, the gravel crunching under their tires. The station's overhead lights cast harsh shadows across the concrete, creating pools of yellow light surrounded by growing darkness. "Bathroom break?" Ava asked, already knowing the answer as Zoe nodded eagerly. Marcus stepped out first, his military-trained eyes automatically scanning the surroundings, an instinct he'd never quite shed. The air had cooled considerably, and crickets chirped in the tall grass beyond the station's perimeter. He began filling the tank while Ava and Zoe headed toward the store's entrance. The peaceful evening shattered as a police cruiser suddenly roared into the lot, its tires squealing against the pavement. Marcus's spine stiffened, his hand instinctively moving toward his hip, where his service weapon would have been if he weren't on leave. The cruiser's aggressive entrance sent a jolt of adrenaline through his system. 2 officers emerged, their movements sharp and purposeful. The taller one, his nameplate reading Lewis, led the way, his hand resting casually on his holstered weapon. The shorter officer, Daniels, followed close behind, his face set in a grim expression that didn't match the quiet evening. Marcus watched in growing alarm as the officers intercepted Ava and Zoe before they could reach the store's entrance. Officer Lewis positioned himself directly in their path, his broad shoulders blocking their way. "Ma'am, we've received a report of shoplifting," Lewis announced, his voice carrying across the lot. "Need you to step over here." Ava's voice remained steady, though Marcus could hear the tension in it. "There must be some mistake. We just pulled in to use the restroom." "No mistake," Lewis growled, stepping closer. "Store owner's been watching you circle the lot, waiting for your chance." Marcus's jaw clenched as he watched Zoe shrink against her mother's side. His daughter's eyes were wide with fear, her new stuffed bear clutched tightly to her chest. "Sir, we literally just arrived," Ava stated firmly, her legal training evident in her measured tone. "You can check our GPS or ask my husband right there at the pump." Officer Lewis cut her off by roughly grabbing her arm, causing Zoe to cry out in surprise. "Listen here, we can do this the easy way or the hard way." "Mommy?" Zoe's voice trembled as Officer Daniels moved to block her from reaching for her mother. Marcus watched in horror as Lewis shoved Ava against the concrete wall, pressing his forearm across her shoulders. "Quit resisting!" "I'm not resisting!" Ava's voice cracked with a mix of fear and indignation. "You're hurting me!" Zoe's tears flowed freely now, her small body shaking as she called out, "Daddy! Daddy! Help!" Marcus's heart thundered in his chest as he watched this nightmare unfold. His years of military training screamed at him to neutralize the threat, but he forced himself to move with careful deliberation. One wrong move could make this situation infinitely worse. He stepped away from the pump, his movements measured and calm despite the rage building inside him. His voice, when it came, carried the full weight of his command experience, deep, authoritative, and controlled. "Officers!" he called out, walking steadily toward them. "I believe there's been a serious misunderstanding here." Lewis's head snapped toward Marcus, his eyes narrowing with obvious contempt. "Stay back! This is a police matter." The gas station's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the scene. In the distance, a car horn honked, but the sound seemed to come from another world entirely. Right here, right now, time had slowed to a crawl, as Marcus watched his wife pressed against the wall and his daughter trembling in fear. The fluorescent lights cast stark shadows as Officer Lewis lunged for Ava again, his fingers curling into a cruel grip. Marcus's voice cut through the night air like a blade. "Back! Off!" Each word carried the weight of command, of countless missions where lives hung in the balance. Officer Daniels spun toward Marcus, face twisted with misplaced authority. His hands shot out, connecting with Marcus's chest in a hard shove. The impact barely moved Marcus, but it ignited something deep within him. Years of training, of precise violence held carefully in check. Time seemed to slow. Marcus registered everything with crystal clarity. The slight widening of Daniels's eyes as he realized his mistake, the way Lewis's hand moved toward his belt, Ava's sharp intake of breath, and Zoe's quiet whimper. Marcus moved like flowing water. Daniels threw a clumsy punch that Marcus blocked with his forearm, deflecting the force harmlessly aside. In the same fluid motion, he caught Daniels's extended arm, his fingers finding pressure points with surgical precision. A quick twist, and Daniels's arm was locked behind his back. Marcus drove his knee forward, forcing the officer down onto the concrete. The gas station's harsh lighting caught the metal of Lewis's extending baton. The weapon made a sharp clicking sound as it locked into place, but Lewis never got the chance to use it. Marcus released Daniels with a warning squeeze and pivoted, his hand snaking out to catch Lewis's wrist. A sharp twist, a precise application of pressure, and the baton clattered to the ground, skittering across the concrete. "Marcus!" Ava's voice carried equal measures of relief and warning. Zoe's scream pierced the night air, the sound driving into Marcus's heart like a physical pain. He turned, chest heaving, adrenaline singing through his veins. His eyes were wild, but his mind remained razor-sharp. Years of training took over. Assess, control, de-escalate. Marcus raised his hands slowly, deliberately. Not in surrender, but in a display of absolute control. His movements were precise as he reached into his jacket, every motion telegraphed to avoid escalation. The Delta Force commander identification caught the fluorescent light as he withdrew it. "You just assaulted a decorated special operations officer," Marcus stated, his voice dropping to a deadly quiet that carried more weight than any shout. "You want to explain that to your captain?" The silence that followed was absolute. Even the crickets seemed to hold their breath. Officer Lewis stood frozen, blood trickling from his split lip where he'd caught himself on the fall. Daniels remained on the ground, one hand rubbing his twisted shoulder, pain etched across his face. The officers stared at Marcus, their earlier bravado evaporating like morning dew. They didn't even glance at the identification he held out. They didn't need to. The way Marcus had moved told them everything they needed to know about who and what they were dealing with. Officer Lewis swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing visibly. "There's been a misunderstanding," he mumbled, the words barely audible over the soft hum of the gas station's lights. Marcus didn't respond. He didn't need to. Instead, he turned to his family, wrapping one arm protectively around Ava's shoulders while shielding Zoe with his body. Ava clutched his arm, her fingers trembling slightly against his sleeve. Her breath came in short, controlled bursts, the lawyer in her already cataloging everything that had happened, every violation of procedure and civil rights. Zoe pressed her face into her mother's coat, her small shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. Her stuffed bear hung limply from one hand, nearly dragging on the ground. Marcus wanted to sweep her up, to hold her close and promise that everything would be okay. But he knew they needed to leave first. Get to safety. Process later. They walked back to their SUV in tight formation, Marcus constantly aware of the officers' positions behind them. He helped Zoe into her seat first, then Ava, before moving to the driver's side. His movements remained measured and deliberate, never turning his back fully on the threat. Through the windshield, he could see Officer Lewis retreating to his cruiser, one hand wiping blood from his mouth. Daniels followed, still favoring his shoulder, his earlier confidence replaced by barely concealed fear. Marcus started the engine, the familiar rumble doing little to calm his racing heart. He reached over to squeeze Ava's hand, feeling her wedding ring press against his palm. The same gesture from earlier now carrying a weight of shared trauma and relief. "Everyone okay?" he asked softly, eyes meeting Ava's before checking on Zoe in the rearview mirror. "We're okay," Ava whispered back, though her voice wavered slightly. "We're okay." In the police cruiser behind them, Officer Lewis reached for his radio, his movements precise and cold as he watched the Johnson family's SUV pull away from the gas station. Officer Lewis's fingers trembled with barely contained rage as he punched the Johnson family's license plate number into his computer. Blood from his split lip dripped onto his uniform, each crimson spot fueling his hatred. The screen flickered, then lit up with an alert that made his pain fade into vicious satisfaction. Marcus Johnson, national security threat, outstanding warrant. "Got you now," Lewis muttered, a cruel smile twisting his features. He grabbed his radio, voice steady despite his racing pulse. "Dispatch, this is Officer Lewis. I need all available units to respond." Subject Marcus Johnson, wanted national security threat, heading northbound on Palmer Road in a black SUV. Inside their vehicle, Marcus drove carefully, maintaining the speed limit despite every instinct screaming at him to floor it. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel, eyes constantly checking the mirrors. Beside him, Ava's breathing had steadied, but her hand remained locked with his, drawing strength from the contact. "Daddy?" Zoe's small voice came from the back seat. "Are those bad police officers going to follow us?" Before Marcus could answer, red and blue lights exploded in his rearview mirror. Not one car, but three. No, 4 police cruisers screaming toward them, sirens wailing through the quiet night. "Hold on," Marcus commanded, his military training kicking in. He made a sharp turn onto a side street, mind racing through escape routes. The SUV's tires squealed as he executed a perfect defensive driving maneuver, cutting through a shopping center parking lot. Ava gripped the dashboard. "Marcus, what's happening?" "I don't know," he replied, voice tight with concentration. "But those officers didn't just happen to find us." He pulled out his phone, hitting speed dial while taking another sharp turn. The phone rang twice before a gruff voice answered. "Benjamin Carter." "Ben, it's Marcus. I need help." Marcus weaved through back streets, keeping his speed controlled but urgent. "Something's wrong. Police everywhere, saying I'm some kind of threat." "Where are you?" Benjamin's voice shifted instantly from casual to tactical. "Heading east on Riverside, trying to lose a tail. Got Ava and Zoe with me." "Listen carefully." Benjamin's words came fast and clear. "There's been chatter. Corrupt officials targeting black veterans who've spoken out. They're using classified channels to frame them as threats. Your name came up last week in some encrypted communications I intercepted." Marcus's stomach dropped. Last month's interview about racial discrimination in special operations training. It had made waves, earned him both praise and enemies. How deep does this go? Deep enough to get you listed as a national security threat within hours. These aren't just dirty cops, Marcus. This goes higher. In the back seat, Zoe clutched her bear tighter, eyes wide as she watched more police lights appear in the distance. Ava reached back, squeezing her daughter's knee. "It's okay, baby. Daddy knows what he's doing." Marcus took another turn, then another, his tactical mind mapping escape routes. "Ben, we need somewhere safe. Can't go home. They'll be waiting." "My place. Off-grid cabin outside the city. You remember the route from last year's hunting trip?" "Yeah." Marcus checked his mirrors again. He'd lost the immediate tail, but distant sirens still pierced the night. "Send me current security codes. We'll be there in 2 hours." "I'll be ready. And Marcus, watch for roadblocks. They're coordinating with state police." The call ended. Marcus glanced at his family. Ava's face set with determination, Zoe trying so hard to be brave. Their normal life, their home, their safety, all of it shattered in the space of an hour. "Ava, get Zoe's tablet from her backpack. Remove the battery. Both our phones, too. They could track GPS." Ava nodded, immediately understanding. As she dealt with the electronics, Marcus guided them onto smaller roads, avoiding main highways. His mind raced through tactical scenarios, threat assessments, contingency plans. The skills that had kept his teams alive in combat zones would now protect his family. "Where are we going?" Zoe asked, her voice small but steady. "To Uncle Ben's cabin, sweetheart. Remember? Where we went fishing last summer?" Zoe nodded, clutching her bear tighter. "Is it because of those mean police officers?" Marcus met her eyes in the rearview mirror, seeing fear but also trust. "Yes, baby. Some bad people are trying to hurt our family, but I won't let them. Uncle Ben is going to help us figure this out." Ava finished disabling their devices, her lawyer's mind already cataloging evidence, violations, witnesses. "Marcus, this is bigger than just those officers at the gas station. If they can fabricate federal charges this quickly—" "I know." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Ben says they're targeting veterans who speak out, using the system against us." He took another careful turn, leading them further from the city lights. "We need to be smart, careful. They've turned me into a fugitive, but they don't know who they're dealing with." The SUV's headlights cut through growing darkness as they left the suburbs behind. Behind them, the glow of the city faded, along with any illusion of their normal life continuing. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, but also the promise of safety with Benjamin, a chance to fight back against the corruption that had targeted their family. Zoe's soft voice broke the tense silence. "Daddy? Are we going to be okay?" Marcus met Ava's eyes, seeing his own determination reflected there. "Yes, baby. We're going to be okay." We're together, and that's what matters most. The gravel crunched under the SUV's tires as Marcus carefully navigated Benjamin's long, winding driveway. Thick pine trees surrounded them, their branches creating natural cover from aerial surveillance. The cabin's dark silhouette emerged from the shadows, its windows blackened against the night sky. Benjamin stood on the porch, his muscular frame tense and alert. He held a tactical flashlight low, signaling with 2 quick flashes, their old team's all-clear sign. Marcus responded with a single headlight flash before killing the engine. "Inside, quickly!" Benjamin directed, his voice barely above a whisper. He scanned the tree line as the family hurried up the wooden steps, Zoe clutching her bear tightly against her chest. The cabin's interior was spartanly furnished but secure. Heavy curtains blocked the windows, and multiple security monitors displayed feeds from hidden cameras around the property. A police scanner hummed quietly in the corner, monitoring local frequencies. "Satellite internet's up," Benjamin reported, leading them to a small office area. "Encrypted connection. They can't trace it here." He pulled out a chair for Ava, who immediately sat down at the computer. Marcus placed a gentle hand on Zoe's shoulder. "Sweetheart, why don't you rest on the couch? It's been a long night." "I'm not tired, Daddy," Zoe protested, though her eyes were heavy. "I want to help." Ava turned from the computer screen. "Baby, the best way you can help is to get some sleep. We need you strong for tomorrow." Benjamin grabbed a soft blanket from a nearby chest. "Here, kiddo. This is my lucky blanket from when I was in the service. It'll keep you safe." Zoe accepted the blanket, wrapping it around herself as she curled up on the worn leather couch. Despite her determination to stay awake, exhaustion soon pulled her into sleep. "Look at this," Ava called softly, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "They've created an entire false history. According to these records, Marcus has been under investigation for months." Her voice trembled with anger. "They've fabricated evidence, backdated documents, created fake witness statements." Marcus leaned over her shoulder, studying the screen. "How did they do this so fast?" "They didn't," Benjamin growled. "This was planned. They were waiting for an opportunity." He pulled up another window, displaying encrypted communications he'd intercepted. "See these dates? They've been building this case for weeks, maybe months. The gas station incident just gave them an excuse to activate it." Ava's legal training kicked in as she took notes. This is sloppy work if you know where to look. Inconsistent dates, contradictory statements. They rushed it. She highlighted several passages. These allegations don't even make sense. They claim you're involved in anti-government activities, but the timeline conflicts with your documented deployments. They're counting on fear and prejudice, Marcus said grimly. A black veteran labeled as a security threat? Most people won't look past the headlines. Benjamin pulled up more files. They're specifically targeting veterans who've spoken out about discrimination. 3 cases in the last month alone. All black officers, all with spotless records, all suddenly labeled as threats after making public statements. Ava's fingers paused over the keyboard. We need to document everything. Build our own case. She opened a secure email client. I have contacts at the ACLU, journalists who've covered similar cases. We need to get ahead of their narrative. Carefully, Marcus warned. They'll be monitoring all official channels. A soft whimper from the couch drew their attention. Zoe stirred in her sleep, her face troubled. Ava moved to comfort her daughter, stroking her hair until she settled back into peaceful slumber. She's so brave, Benjamin observed quietly. Like her parents. Marcus watched his daughter, his expression hardening. We need to end this quickly, for her sake. She shouldn't have to live in fear. Ava returned to the computer, her determination renewed. I'm drafting emergency motions, preparing for multiple jurisdictions. They'll try to keep this in friendly courts, but we can fight venue. Benjamin's phone buzzed. A secure line, known only to trusted contacts. His expression darkened as he read the message. "Marcus, we've got trouble. My contact at the NSA just warned me. They're activating surveillance satellites for this region starting tomorrow morning." "How wide a search area?" Marcus asked, immediately shifting into tactical assessment. 50-mile radius, centered on your last known location. Benjamin pulled up a map. "They're serious about finding you." Ava looked up sharply. "Can they track us here?" "Not yet," Benjamin replied. "The tree cover helps, and I've got signal scramblers active. But once they start running infrared scans..." He shook his head. "We can't risk staying more than a day." Marcus nodded, already formulating plans. "We need to move before dawn. Somewhere they won't expect." He studied the map, tracing potential routes with his finger. "I have a contact," Ava offered. "A civil rights attorney in another state. She has experience hiding witnesses from corrupt officials. If we can reach her..." Benjamin's security system chimed softly. Motion detected at the property's perimeter. They froze, watching as a deer wandered across one of the camera feeds. The tension in the room remained. "Whatever we do," Marcus said quietly, watching his sleeping daughter, "we do it smart. We're not just running. We're going to fight back. Clear my name. Expose everyone involved in this." Dawn crept over Benjamin's property, painting the pine trees in soft golden light. Inside the cabin, Marcus methodically packed a black duffel bag with essential supplies. His movements were quick but precise, each item carefully chosen for their escape. "Extra magazines, first aid kit, emergency rations," he muttered, checking off a mental list. Beside him, Ava stuffed clothes and toiletries into a backpack, her hands trembling slightly, but her face set with determination. Benjamin entered from his surveillance room, his expression grim. "Patrol cars spotted on Route 16. They're setting up a search grid." He handed Marcus a burner phone. "Untraceable. I've programmed emergency contacts." Zoe sat cross-legged on the couch, still wrapped in Benjamin's lucky blanket. She watched her parents with wide, worried eyes. "Are the bad police coming here?" Ava paused her packing, kneeling beside her daughter. "We're leaving before they get close, baby. Remember how Daddy always wins at hide and seek? That's what we're going to do." Marcus checked his watch. 5 minutes. "Ben, you know what to do after we're gone?" Benjamin nodded. "I'll create a false trail heading west. Should buy you at least a day." He pulled out a set of keys. "Take my backup vehicle. It's got reinforced panels and run-flat tires. Parked in the concealed garage." A distant sound made them all freeze. Helicopter rotors, still far off, but getting closer. "Time to move," Marcus ordered, his voice calm but brooking no argument. He shouldered the duffel bag while Ava helped Zoe into her jacket. Benjamin led them through a hidden door in his pantry, revealing a narrow passage that sloped downward. Emergency lights flickered on automatically, illuminating concrete walls. "Cold War bunker," Benjamin explained as they hurried through. "Previous owner was paranoid. Lucky for us." The passage opened into a camouflaged garage built into the hillside. A dark blue SUV sat ready, its windows tinted well beyond legal limits. Marcus quickly loaded their bags while Ava secured Zoe in the back seat. Benjamin handed Marcus a tablet. "Satellite tracking data. Updates every 30 seconds. Watch for their search patterns." He gripped Marcus's shoulder. "Stay alive, brother." "You too," Marcus replied. They embraced briefly before Marcus slid behind the wheel. The garage door opened silently, revealing a narrow dirt track that wound through dense undergrowth. Marcus eased the SUV forward, keeping the lights off despite the dim morning light. The helicopter sounds grew louder. "Down," he commanded softly. Ava and Zoe ducked below window level as they emerged from the tree cover. Through the windshield, Marcus spotted the helicopter sweeping the main road, its searchlight probing the morning mist. He turned away from the road, following a barely visible trail between the trees. The SUV's suspension absorbed the rough terrain as Marcus navigated by memory, using skills honed from years of covert operations. "How do you know where to go?" Zoe whispered from below. "Daddy memorized all the secret paths," Ava explained, keeping her voice steady. Like a special map in his head. Marcus checked the tablet. Red dots showed police vehicles converging on Benjamin's property from multiple directions. But they were looking for obvious escape routes, main roads, highways. Not this forgotten logging trail that hadn't seen use in decades. The helicopter's sound faded as they put distance between themselves and the search area. After 20 minutes of careful navigation, Marcus finally reached a narrow county road. He turned onto it smoothly, maintaining exactly the speed limit. "Clear to sit up," he said, "but stay low in the seats." Ava helped Zoe straighten up. The girl's bear was clutched tightly to her chest, but her eyes were alert, watching everything. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe," Marcus assured her. "An old place where Daddy used to work. Nobody knows about it anymore." 2 hours later, they pulled into the crumbling parking lot of the Paradise Inn Motel. The single-story building was a relic of better days, its faded paint and sagging roof suggesting long abandonment. But Marcus knew better. "This was one of our safe houses," he explained as they parked behind the building, hidden from the road. "We used it for covert operations training. Benjamin and I maintained it off the books." The room he chose was spartanly furnished, but clean, with heavy blackout curtains and a solid door. Most importantly, it had clear sight lines to all approaches and multiple escape routes. Ava set up their minimal supplies while Marcus did a security sweep. Zoe explored the room cautiously, still holding her bear like a shield. "Look what I found, baby," Ava called, pulling out a deck of cards from her bag. "Want to play Go Fish?" Zoe nodded eagerly, some of the tension leaving her small shoulders as she sat cross-legged on one of the beds. Marcus watched them begin their game, his heart aching at this attempt at normalcy in their desperate situation. He turned to the tablet, studying police movements and news reports. They'd successfully evaded the initial dragnet, but he knew this was just the beginning. They needed to gather evidence, expose the truth, clear his name. But first, they needed to survive. Marcus pulled out the burner phone, composing a secure message to Benjamin. "Package delivered safe. Begin countermeasures." He deleted the message immediately after sending it, then resumed his vigilant watch over his family. Late afternoon sun slanted through gaps in the blackout curtains, casting thin strips of light across the motel room's worn carpet. Marcus moved methodically along the perimeter of the building, checking entry points and potential vulnerabilities. His trained eyes scanned the tree line bordering the property, looking for any sign of movement or surveillance. Inside room 114, Ava sat cross-legged on one of the twin beds, her laptop balanced on her knees. The weak motel Wi-Fi, routed through multiple security protocols Benjamin had set up, crawled at a frustrating pace. But she pressed on, diving deep into various veterans forums and social media groups. "Marcus," she called softly as he re-entered the room. "You need to see this." He locked the door behind him and moved to sit beside her. The laptop screen showed a series of posts from different military veterans, all sharing disturbingly similar stories. "Look at the pattern," Ava said, scrolling through the posts. James Thompson, former Marine Corps sergeant, spoke out about racial discrimination in his unit. 2 weeks later, arrested on fabricated weapons charges. Charles Wilson, retired Air Force captain, organized a protest against police brutality. Suddenly found himself accused of selling military secrets. Marcus leaned closer, his jaw tightening. All black veterans, all vocal about systemic racism. And all charges mysteriously disappeared after they agreed to stop their activism, Ava added, her voice thick with disgust. The posts get deleted quickly, but I found archived versions. Someone's trying to silence these men. Zoe sat at the small table by the window, carefully staying away from the gaps in the curtains as her parents had instructed. She held her phone up, recording herself as she often did when traveling. "Dear Diary," she whispered, "we're staying at a really old motel today. Mommy and Daddy say we're on a special adventure." Marcus pulled out the tablet Benjamin had given them, cross-referencing dates and locations. Officer Lewis's name keeps coming up in the regional reports. He's been transferred between 3 different departments in 2 years, always following complaints of excessive force against minorities. "That's not all," Ava said, opening another window. "Look at his military police record. He served at bases where some of these targeted veterans were stationed. The connections are there, just buried deep." Marcus nodded grimly. He's not working alone. This level of coordination, the speed of the warrant against me, it takes a network. A network designed to intimidate black service members who speak up, Ava finished, using the system against those who challenge it. By the window, Zoe continued her quiet narration. "The motel has these really thick curtains, and Daddy says they're special because they keep us safe. Oh, there's another car driving really slow outside, just like the black one from before." Marcus and Ava exchanged worried glances, their research momentarily forgotten. "Zoe, honey," Ava called softly, "come away from the window." "But I'm making my video diary," Zoe protested mildly, still recording. "I want to remember everything about our adventure." Marcus moved silently to the window, carefully peering through a tiny gap in the curtains. A dark sedan crept past the motel for the 3rd time in an hour. Different vehicle, same suspicious behavior. "Keep recording if you want, sweetheart," he said, maintaining a calm tone while positioning himself between Zoe and the window. "But let's move to the other bed, okay? Better lighting there." Ava continued her research while Marcus guided Zoe to a safer position. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, following digital breadcrumbs. These veterans, they're not just random targets. Each one had influence, followers. Their voices mattered. "Like Daddy?" Zoe asked, still holding her phone up. "He always stands up to bullies." "That's right, baby," Ava smiled sadly. "Just like Daddy." Marcus checked his burner phone, reading an encrypted message from Benjamin. "Local police channels are quiet," he reported. "Too quiet. They're using private frequencies now." "They're getting closer to connecting the dots," Ava said, her voice tight with worry. "Each victim's story adds another piece to the puzzle. Officer Lewis isn't just a racist cop. He's their enforcer, their weapon against anyone who threatens to expose the truth." Zoe panned her phone around the room, capturing her parents' intense focus, without fully understanding its significance. "Mommy's super smart," she narrated quietly. "She's finding out why the mean police officers are after us. And Daddy's keeping watch, just like he does when we play hide-and-seek." Through the window, another unfamiliar vehicle rolled past, its tinted windows concealing its occupants. Zoe's phone captured its slow progress in the background of her video, though she remained oblivious to its significance. "What do you see out there, baby?" Ava asked carefully, trying to gauge how much Zoe had noticed. "Just some cars," Zoe replied, still recording. "They keep driving around and around, like they're lost or something. Maybe they can't find the right motel room either." Marcus and Ava shared another concerned look. Their daughter's innocent observation confirmed their fears. They were being hunted. The net was closing in, and their temporary haven wouldn't stay secret much longer. In her ongoing recording, Zoe captured it all. Her mother's determined research, her father's vigilant protection, and the increasingly frequent pass-bys of suspicious vehicles. Her simple diary entry was becoming crucial evidence, though none of them realized it yet. Marcus stood at the motel window, his trained eyes scanning the darkness. The parking lot's single flickering lamp cast strange shadows across the cracked asphalt. Something wasn't right. Years of combat experience had honed his instincts to razor sharpness, and right now, every nerve in his body screamed danger. He noticed the subtle movement first, a shadow that shifted wrong, too deliberate to be natural. Then another. His muscles tensed as he counted at least 3 figures moving through the darkness, their weapons visible in brief glints of moonlight. "Ava," he whispered, not taking his eyes from the window. "Get Zoe behind the bed. Now." Ava immediately understood the gravity in his tone. She grabbed Zoe's hand, pulling their daughter close. "Come on, baby," she murmured, trying to keep her voice steady. "Let's play our quiet game." Zoe's eyes went wide with understanding. She'd been taught what to do in emergencies, but this was real now. She pressed herself against her mother behind the far bed, making herself as small as possible. Marcus moved silently across the worn carpet, positioning himself beside the door. His breathing remained controlled, measured. He could hear footsteps now, careful ones, but not careful enough for his trained ear. They were coming. The door exploded inward with a thunderous crack, wood splintering around the lock. 3 men burst through in rapid succession, wearing tactical gear and moving with military precision. But Marcus was already moving. The first attacker barely had time to register Marcus's presence before a devastating punch caught him in the throat. As he staggered, Marcus absorbed a brutal hit to his ribs from the second man. The pain was intense, but he'd been trained to use pain to transform it into fuel. He pivoted, driving his elbow into his attacker's temple with bone-crushing force. "Daddy!" Zoe's terrified cry pierced the chaos. "Stay down!" Ava commanded, shielding their daughter with her body. The first attacker was still gasping for air when Marcus wrapped his arm around the man's neck, applying pressure to the carotid arteries. The mercenary struggled, but Marcus's grip was perfect. Within seconds, the man went limp. The second attacker recovered quickly, lunging for Ava. Marcus's protective instinct exploded into fury. He launched himself forward, driving his shoulder into the man's midsection. They crashed into the wall together, the impact sending cracks spiderwebbing through the cheap drywall. The mercenary's grunt of pain turned into a scream as Marcus twisted his arm at an unnatural angle, feeling bones snap under his grip. The third attacker was more cautious, wielding an expandable baton with obvious training. He swung in controlled arcs, forcing Marcus to give ground. A strike slipped through Marcus's defense, catching his forearm with numbing force. The pain was immediate and intense, but Marcus had endured worse. Much worse. Instead of backing away, he stepped into the attack. The mercenary's eyes widened in surprise as Marcus's forehead crashed into his nose. Blood sprayed, and the man stumbled backward, dropping his baton. The room had transformed into a battlefield. The musty motel air now thick with the sounds of combat, grunts of pain, the thud of impacts, the scrape of boots on carpet. Ava held Zoe tight, her lawyer's composure cracking as she watched her husband fight with lethal efficiency. Marcus moved like water, each action flowing into the next. He'd spent years training for exactly this type of close-quarters combat. While his attackers were skilled, they hadn't expected to face someone of his caliber. They'd expected an easy target, a simple snatch and grab. Instead, they'd found a Delta Force commander protecting his family. The third attacker tried to recover, reaching for a sidearm. Marcus didn't give him the chance. A precise strike to the solar plexus doubled the man over, followed by a knee to the face that sent him sprawling unconscious across the stained motel carpet. In the sudden quiet, Marcus's controlled breathing seemed loud. His ribs throbbed where he'd taken the hit. and his forearm was already swelling from the baton strike. But his eyes remained sharp, scanning for additional threats. "Are you both okay?" he asked, not taking his eyes off the door. "We're okay," Ava answered, her voice shaky but strong. She kept her arms wrapped protectively around Zoe, who was trembling but hadn't made a sound since her initial cry. Marcus quickly checked the fallen attackers, securing their weapons and searching for identification. These weren't ordinary thugs. Their gear was too good, their tactics too refined. They were professionals, likely ex-military turned mercenary. The question was, who had sent them? Through the shattered silence came new sounds. The crunch of gravel outside, whispered commands, more shadows moving with military precision around their parked car. Marcus's jaw tightened. These weren't just backup forces. This was a full tactical team. "More incoming," he said quietly, already calculating angles and escape routes. His eyes landed on a metal folding chair propped against the wall. Without hesitation, he grabbed it, testing its weight. Ava clutched Zoe closer, understanding dawning in her eyes. They'd practiced emergency exits before, but never like this. Never with real bullets and real killers hunting them. "When I say move, you run straight for the car," Marcus instructed, positioning himself by the back window. "Don't stop. Don't look back." Zoe's small fingers gripped her mother's shirt tighter. Her face was pale but determined, trying so hard to be brave. Marcus felt his heart twist. His little girl shouldn't have to be this strong, this soon. The shadows outside shifted closer. Marcus could hear them coordinating their approach through radio clicks and hand signals. Time was up. He hefted the metal chair, muscles coiling. "Move!" The chair exploded through the back window in a shower of glass. The noise was deafening in the small room, but it achieved its purpose, drawing immediate fire toward the window while creating their escape route. Ava moved with surprising speed, lifting Zoe and practically diving through the broken window. Glass crunched under their feet as they sprinted for the car. Marcus grabbed a fallen attacker's pistol, checking the magazine with practiced efficiency. 8 rounds. It would have to be enough. The first shooter appeared around the corner, weapon raised. Marcus didn't hesitate. 2 rapid shots caught the man in the chest, dropping him before he could squeeze his trigger. The second attacker managed to get off a burst of automatic fire, bullets tearing chunks from the wall inches from Marcus's head. "Get down!" he shouted, returning fire. His shots were precise, economical, each one finding its mark. The second shooter fell, clutching his shoulder. Ava had reached the car, fumbling with the keys while keeping Zoe's head down. The engine roared to life just as more attackers emerged from the shadows. Gunfire lit up the night, bullets punching through metal and glass. Marcus burst from the window, rolling to his feet and sprinting in a zigzag pattern. His training took over, body moving instinctively to present the smallest possible target. He fired his remaining rounds in controlled pairs, not trying to kill but to suppress, to keep the attackers' heads down long enough to reach the car. A massive pickup truck blocked their exit, its engine idling menacingly. Marcus threw himself into the driver's seat, slamming the car into reverse before he'd even fully closed the door. "Hold on!" The car lurched backward, tires screaming. The impact with the fence was jarring, metal shrieking against metal. But the old fence gave way, creating just enough space to squeeze through. A dark figure suddenly appeared on their hood, face masked, weapon raised. Marcus didn't think. He stomped the accelerator. The car shot forward, and their attacker was thrown clear, tumbling across the pavement like a rag doll. More bullets found them as they fled, shattering the back window and punching through the trunk. Zoe whimpered, pressed flat against the floor with Ava shielding her. Marcus drove erratically, making them a harder target while scanning for pursuit. "Anyone hurt?" he demanded, taking a hard turn onto a dark side street. "We're okay," Ava answered, her voice steady despite the terror evident in her eyes. "Zoe's scared, but not injured." "I'm being brave, Daddy," Zoe's small voice came from below. "You're doing great, baby," Marcus assured her, checking the rearview mirror for the 100th time. "Just stay down a little longer." They drove through the night, taking back roads and switching directions randomly to shake any pursuit. Marcus's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, every sense hyper-alert for danger. His ribs screamed with each breath, and dried blood had crusted along his forearm, but he couldn't afford to focus on the pain. Not yet. After what felt like hours, they finally pulled up to an abandoned farmhouse Benjamin had told him about. An old safe house from his Delta Force days. The structure looked ready to collapse, paint peeling from weathered boards, but it would have to do. They practically fell through the door, exhaustion finally catching up with them. Ava's designer blouse was torn and stained with dirt and blood. Zoe's face was streaked with tears, her small body trembling. Marcus's own injuries throbbed mercilessly, but he forced himself to check every room, every window, securing their temporary refuge. Only then did he allow himself to sink down against a wall, drawing his family close. Outside, the horizon was beginning to lighten with the first hints of dawn. Marcus's eyes remained sharp, scanning the tree line, the empty fields, searching for any sign of movement. The first rays of morning light crept through the farmhouse's dusty windows. Marcus sat at a rickety table, his burner phone pressed to his ear. His voice was low, careful not to wake Ava and Zoe, who had finally fallen into an exhausted sleep in the next room. "They came at us with military precision, Benjamin. These weren't just cops," Marcus explained, rubbing his tired eyes. "Someone's bankrolling a private tactical team." "I've been digging since you called," Benjamin's gravelly voice came through. "Lewis has connections to a security contractor called Blackstone Solutions. They're officially licensed for corporate security, but word is they do off-the-books work for corrupt officials." Marcus leaned forward, interest piqued. "Any paper trail?" "Better. I found their operations center, old warehouse on the industrial side of town. And get this, they've got a secure room, heavy surveillance, armed guards. They're protecting something big in there." "Evidence," Marcus breathed. "They'd need hard copies to maintain control over everyone involved." "My thoughts exactly. Files, photos, maybe even video recordings of their operations. Enough to blow this whole thing wide open." Ava appeared in the doorway, her lawyer's notepad in hand. Despite the chaos of their escape, she'd been meticulously documenting everything. Dark circles ringed her eyes, but her expression was focused, determined. "I've been connecting the dots," she said, spreading her notes on the table. "Lewis isn't just some racist cop gone rogue. He's part of a systematic operation targeting black veterans who speak out against police brutality. They're using falsified security threats to discredit them, destroy their careers." Marcus studied her careful handwriting, the web of connections she'd mapped out. How many others? At least 12 cases in the past year. All decorated veterans, all suddenly labeled as threats after raising concerns about racial profiling or police misconduct. The pattern is undeniable. Benjamin's voice crackled through the phone. "We need that evidence from Blackstone. Without hard proof, it's their word against yours." Marcus nodded grimly. "What's the security layout?" Two-man teams patrolling the perimeter. Card readers on all access points. Interior cameras with blind spots I've mapped out. The secure room has a biometric lock, fingerprint, and retinal scan. Can we crack it? Already got what we need. One of their security supervisors has a gambling problem. Amazing what people will sell when they're desperate. Ava touched Marcus's arm, her eyes worried. This is incredibly dangerous. If they catch you, they won't, Marcus assured her, covering her hand with his. Benjamin and I have done harder missions with less prep time. This is what we trained for. He stood, checking his weapons and gear. Benjamin had arranged for fresh supplies to be cached nearby. Clean clothes, untraceable weapons, basic medical equipment, everything they'd need for a covert operation. I don't like leaving you and Zoe, Marcus admitted softly. We'll be safer here, Ava said. The more people moving, the more chances of being spotted. She swallowed hard. Just come back to us. Marcus pulled her close, breathing in her familiar scent. Always. Zoe's small voice came from the hallway. Daddy? Marcus knelt down as she approached, her stuffed rabbit clutched tight. Hey, baby girl, I need to go away for a little while with Uncle Benjamin. But I promise I'll come back as soon as I can. Zoe's lower lip trembled. Are the bad men coming back? No, sweetheart. You and Mommy will be safe here. And I'm going to get proof to show everyone that the bad men were lying about us. She nodded solemnly, then surprised him by pressing her rabbit into his hands. Take Mr. Hoppy. He's brave, and he'll protect you. Marcus felt his throat tighten. He carefully tucked the rabbit into his tactical vest. Thank you, baby. I'll keep him safe. Benjamin's truck rumbled up the dirt road right on schedule. Marcus did one final equipment check. Weapons, tools, comms gear. Everything he'd need to infiltrate a heavily guarded facility. The mission window is tight, Benjamin said as Marcus climbed in. Guard shift change at 0300 gives us our best shot at the secure room. Marcus nodded, watching the farmhouse shrink in the side mirror. His family would be safer here, he knew that. But leaving them still felt like tearing off a piece of himself. They'll be okay, Benjamin said, reading his expression. Ava's smart, and she knows how to stay hidden. Let's focus on getting what we need to end this. Right. Marcus forced his mind into mission mode, reviewing the facility layout Benjamin had obtained. Walk me through the entry points again. As Benjamin's truck carried them toward their target, Marcus touched the stuffed rabbit in his vest. He'd made a promise to come back. Now he just had to survive long enough to keep it. The pre-dawn darkness cloaked Benjamin's truck as they pulled up half a mile from Officer Lewis's house. Marcus checked his watch. 4:15 a.m. Perfect timing. Security systems basic, Benjamin muttered, studying a tablet showing the house's layout. Motion sensors, door contacts, cellular backup. Nothing we haven't beaten before. Marcus nodded, double-checking his gear. Where's the safe? Home office. Behind a painting. Typical cop thinking he's cleverer than he is? Benjamin's voice dripped with contempt. Intel says he keeps physical copies of everything. Insurance against his bosses turning on him. They moved silently through the shadows of the sleeping suburban neighborhood. Marcus's training kicked in automatically, checking sight lines, noting escape routes, identifying potential threats. The house sat dark and quiet, Lewis's patrol car absent from the driveway. He's working nights this week, Benjamin confirmed. Wife's visiting her sister in Florida. House is empty. Marcus studied the back door, while Benjamin dealt with the security system. Years of tactical operations had taught him to read buildings like books. This one practically screamed its vulnerabilities. The lock yielded to Benjamin's picks in seconds. They slipped inside, moving with practiced stealth. The house smelled of cigarettes and cheap coffee. Family photos lined the walls. Lewis smiling with his wife, accepting awards, playing the part of dedicated officer. Marcus's jaw tightened at the hypocrisy. The office door was locked, another basic mechanism that took Benjamin moments to defeat. Inside, the expected painting hung on the wall, a generic landscape hiding a wall safe. Amateur hour, Benjamin whispered, setting to work on the safe's digital keypad. He actually used his badge number as the code. The safe swung open with a soft click. Marcus's trained eyes quickly scanned the contents: files, USB drives, photographs. He carefully removed everything, checking each item. "Got it," he breathed, holding up a thick folder. Inside were detailed records of the operation targeting black veterans. Names, dates, falsified evidence, payment records, everything they needed. A car door slammed outside. Both men froze. Benjamin checked his tablet. Patrol car just pulled up. Lewis wasn't supposed to be off for another hour. Marcus's mind raced through options. Time to go loud? Not yet. Back door's still clear. If we... Heavy footsteps on the front porch, keys jingling. Marcus grabbed the evidence, shoving it into his pack. They moved silently toward the rear of the house as the front door opened. Lewis's voice carried from the entryway. "Yeah, something triggered the system alert. Probably just a glitch, but I'm checking it out." He was on the phone. "Good." Distracted. Marcus and Benjamin reached the back door just as footsteps started up the stairs. They slipped outside into the pre-dawn gloom. Marcus pulled the door shut with agonizing slowness, willing the latch to engage silently. A shout from inside. "Someone's been here! Call it in!" They ran. Not toward Benjamin's truck. Too obvious. Instead, they cut through backyards, vaulting fences with practiced ease. Behind them, Lewis's voice rose in rage, calling for backup. Sirens wailed in the distance. Marcus's lungs burned as they sprinted through a drainage ditch, staying low. The evidence felt heavy in his pack, but he'd die before letting it go. "This way," Benjamin hissed, leading them through a gap in a wooden fence. They emerged onto a quiet street where a battered delivery van sat idling. "Backup vehicle," Benjamin explained as they piled in. "They'll be looking for my truck." Marcus caught his breath as Benjamin drove casually away from the scene. No pursuit yet. The sirens were converging on Lewis's house, but they were already outside the perimeter. "That was too close," Marcus said, checking the contents of his pack. Everything was there. Detailed records of Lewis's corruption, proof of the conspiracy against black veterans, financial documents showing who was really pulling the strings. "But worth it," Benjamin replied, eyes scanning for tails as he took a circuitous route back toward the farmhouse. "This is everything we need. Names, dates, bank records, the whole operation exposed." Marcus studied a particularly damning document, a memo outlining the criteria for targeting veterans who spoke out. They were systematic about it, choosing people with spotless records, making the charges just believable enough that no one would look too closely. The perfect way to discredit witnesses, Benjamin agreed. Who's going to believe someone labeled a security threat? They didn't count on one of their targets having Delta Force training and friends in interesting places. Benjamin smiled grimly. Their mistake. The sky was lightening toward dawn as they approached the farmhouse. Marcus's heart lifted at the sight. Ava and Zoe were waiting inside. Soon, this would all be over. He checked his pack one more time, feeling the weight of the evidence. Proof of corruption, of systematic racism, of abuse of power. Everything they needed to expose the truth and clear his name. "Ready to take this public?" Benjamin asked, as they pulled up to the farmhouse. Marcus nodded, already thinking about how to release the information for maximum impact. Time to show everyone exactly who the real threats to security are. The midday sun streamed through the farmhouse windows as Marcus and Ava huddled around a laptop. Their hands trembled with a mixture of exhaustion and anticipation. Zoe sat cross-legged on a worn couch nearby, clutching her favorite stuffed animal. "The live stream is ready," Ava announced, her legal training evident in her composed voice, despite her racing heart. "Once we do this, there's no going back." Marcus spread the documents across the kitchen table, arranging them for maximum visibility. "These people tried to destroy our lives. Time to show the world who they really are." Benjamin stood guard by the window, scanning the surroundings. "Signal strong. We're good to go." Ava's fingers flew across the keyboard, connecting to multiple social media platforms simultaneously. Years of civil rights cases had taught her how to make evidence go viral. Starting in 3, 2, 1. The red recording light blinked on. Ava's face filled the screen, her expression both determined and dignified. "My name is Ava Johnson. I'm a civil rights attorney, and what I'm about to show you exposes a systematic campaign of corruption within our local law enforcement." Marcus stepped into frame, his military bearing evident even in civilian clothes. "I'm Commander Marcus Johnson, Delta Force. These officials falsely labeled me a security threat because I spoke out against racism in law enforcement. But they didn't expect me to fight back. They took turns presenting the evidence, document by document. Bank statements showing bribes, internal memos detailing the targeting of black veterans, lists of falsified charges, photos linking Officer Lewis to known corrupt officials. Comments and shares exploded across platforms. News organizations began picking up the feed. Hashtags trended. The truth was spreading like wildfire. "Look at this," Benjamin called from the window. "People are already gathering downtown. Protests are starting." Zoe bounced excitedly on the couch. "We did it! The bad guys can't hide anymore." Ava's eyes welled with tears as supportive messages flooded the chat. People are listening. They're finally seeing the truth. Marcus moved to hug his family, relief washing over him. It's almost over. Once this evidence reaches the federal... The windows exploded inward. Flash-bang grenades detonated, filling the room with blinding light and deafening sound. Smoke poured through the broken windows. Shouts and heavy boots thundered from all directions. "Zoe!" Ava screamed, lunging for their daughter through the chaos. Armed officers in tactical gear swarmed the room. Marcus's combat training kicked in. He grabbed Ava, pulling her behind the kitchen counter as bullets sprayed overhead. Benjamin returned fire from near the window, creating cover. "The laptop!" Ava cried. "The evidence!" "Already uploaded," Benjamin shouted back. "Can't stop it now." Through the smoke and confusion, Marcus caught glimpses of dark figures moving tactically through the house. His trained eye recognized the formation. This wasn't a normal police raid. These were Lewis's corrupt special response team. "Zoe!" Ava's voice cracked with desperation. "Where's Zoe?" A cruel laugh cut through the chaos. The smoke began to clear, revealing Officer Lewis standing in the doorway. He held Zoe roughly by the arm, pressing a gun to her head. "Looking for something?" Lewis sneered. The room froze. Marcus's heart stopped at the sight of his daughter, tears streaming down her face. "Daddy?" Zoe whimpered. "Let her go," Marcus growled, every muscle in his body coiled to strike. "She's just a child." "A child?" Lewis pressed the gun harder against Zoe's temple, making her whimper. "No, she's leverage. Did you really think you could expose us without consequences?" Ava gripped Marcus's arm, her nails digging into his skin. "Please," she begged, "don't hurt her." "That depends entirely on you," Lewis said. "The evidence, delete it, all of it. Now!" "It's too late," Benjamin called from his position. "It's already viral. The whole world knows." "Then the whole world can watch what happens next." Lewis backed toward the door, dragging Zoe with him. "Follow us. Try to stop us. Make any move I don't like. She dies." "Mommy!" Zoe cried out. "Daddy!" Marcus took half a step forward, but Lewis jammed the gun harder against Zoe's head. Ha! Stay right there, Commander." "That's an order." Ava sobbed, her legs giving out. Marcus caught her, holding her up as their daughter was dragged away. "You can't do this," Benjamin shouted. "There are lines even corrupt cops don't cross." "I'm way past caring about lines," Lewis snarled. "You brought this on yourselves." Should have kept your mouth shut. They could only watch helplessly as Lewis backed out of the house, using Zoe as a shield. Other officers covered his retreat, weapons trained on the family. "Say goodbye to Mommy and Daddy," Lewis taunted. "Please," Zoe sobbed. "I want to stay with Mommy and Daddy." The sound of vehicles roaring to life outside, tires squealing on gravel. Then silence. Devastating, horrible silence. Ava collapsed completely, wailing in anguish. Marcus held her, his own tears falling freely now. Their moment of triumph had turned to ash in their mouths. "We'll find her," Marcus whispered fiercely. "Whatever it takes. We'll get her back." But Ava just sobbed harder, clinging to him as if he was the only solid thing left in a world spinning out of control. Their daughter was gone, taken by a monster with a badge. And for the first time in his military career, Marcus felt utterly helpless. The farmhouse fell into a heavy silence, broken only by Ava's muffled sobs. Marcus held her tightly, his military training warring with his parental instincts. Every fiber of his being screamed to chase after Lewis, but he knew that would only endanger Zoe further. "We need to focus," Marcus said firmly, though his voice trembled. "Right now, this second." Ava pulled back, wiping her eyes with shaking hands. Years of handling crisis situations in courtrooms kicked in, helping her push through the panic. "You're right. We have to think clearly." Benjamin secured the perimeter, checking for any remaining threats. "Area's clear. They're gone. But they left us alive for a reason. Lewis wants something." Marcus moved to the table, sweeping aside broken glass. His training took over as he grabbed a paper and pen, starting to sketch out tactical positions. The gas station. That's where this started. That's where he'll want to end it. Standard psychological warfare. "He'll have backup," Benjamin warned, joining them at the table. "Probably his whole corrupt network." "Good," Marcus said grimly. "Means they'll all be in one place when we take them down." Ava watched Marcus planning the assault, her legal mind racing in a different direction. She turned to her laptop, miraculously undamaged in the chaos. "Wait, we need insurance first." Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she accessed their collected evidence. All the footage we gathered, the documents, the recordings, everything that proves their corruption. "We can use it." Marcus looked up from his tactical planning. "How?" "We already broadcast it." "Not everything," Ava said, pulling up files. "We held back the worst evidence as backup. The recordings of Lewis discussing bribes, security footage of him organizing hits on other black veterans, financial records showing millions in illegal payments." She worked quickly, organizing the files into a secure folder. "If we send this to the right people with a deadline, Lewis won't dare harm Zoe. He'll know his entire life will be destroyed if anything happens to us." Benjamin nodded approvingly. Mutually assured destruction. Smart. Ava's legal experience guided her as she created a distribution list. FBI special agents she'd worked with on civil rights cases, investigative reporters who'd broken similar stories, congressional representatives known for fighting police corruption. "1 hour," she said, typing rapidly. "If we don't check in, everything goes public. No way to stop it." Marcus watched his wife work, pride mixing with his fear. "Lewis won't know exactly what evidence we have. He'll have to assume the worst." "Exactly," Ava said, adding final recipients. "He's arrogant, but he's not stupid. He won't risk total exposure." She attached a simple message. "If we don't call within 1 hour, release everything." Her finger hovered over the send button for just a moment before pressing it decisively. "Done," she announced. "Now we have leverage too." Marcus returned to his tactical planning with renewed focus. "We'll need to approach carefully. I know that gas station's layout. 3 potential sniper positions, multiple escape routes. We can't bring weapons," Ava reminded him. He'll be watching for that. I am a weapon, Marcus said quietly. 20 years of Delta Force training. I don't need guns to end this. Benjamin checked his watch. Timer's running. We need to move. Ava gathered her phone and a small recorder, tools of her legal trade that could prove vital. Marcus did a final check of the farmhouse, his tactical mind noting everything they might need. Ready? He asked Ava. She squared her shoulders, drawing on the same strength that had carried her through countless civil rights battles. Ready! They moved toward the door together, each step heavy with purpose. The sun was setting now, casting long shadows across the farmhouse floor. In less than an hour, this would end, one way or another. Zoe's strong, Ava said suddenly, pausing at the threshold. She's smart, like you. She'll keep her head clear. Marcus squeezed her hand. She's brave, like you. She knows we're coming for her. Benjamin watched them from the window, standing guard one last time. Go get your daughter. I'll monitor the evidence deadlines from here. 1 hour. They stepped outside, the cooling evening air carrying the weight of their mission. Their car waited, untouched in the chaos of the raid. Marcus opened Ava's door first, ever the protector even now. "We've faced corrupt systems before," Ava said as she got in courtrooms, in combat zones. Marcus started the engine, his expression set with grim determination. "This time it's personal. They took our daughter." The car pulled away from the farmhouse, carrying them toward their final confrontation. Their evidence insurance was in place, a digital sword hanging over their enemies' heads. Now, they just had to survive long enough to use it. The gas station waited ahead, the place where their nightmare had begun. This time, they weren't innocent victims caught off guard. This time, they were prepared. This time, they had a plan. The evening shadows stretched across the empty gas station as Marcus and Ava's car rolled silently into position. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh pools of light that created deep pockets of darkness between them. Marcus's trained eyes methodically scanned every corner, every potential hiding spot. There, by pump number 3, stood Officer Lewis. His uniform was crisp, his stance rigid with false authority. Zoe stood in front of him, her small frame tense but unbroken. Marcus's heart clenched at the sight of fear in her eyes, but pride swelled when he saw her chin lifted defiantly, just like her mother's. "Stay calm," Marcus whispered to Ava as they stepped out of the car. "Remember the plan." Ava's fingers brushed against his arm, a gesture of unity and strength. They moved forward together, their footsteps echoing in the empty lot. Marcus kept his movements deliberately slow, non-threatening, though every muscle in his body screamed to rush forward and snatch his daughter to safety. They stopped 20 feet away. The distance felt like miles to Marcus, but his Delta Force training held firm. Too close, and Lewis might panic. Too far, and they'd lose psychological advantage. "Let Zoe go, Lewis," Marcus called out, his voice carrying the weight of command without aggression. "Your fight is with me." Lewis's smirk twisted his face into something ugly. His fingers dug visibly into Zoe's shoulder, making Marcus's jaw clench. "You lost your bargaining power when you went rogue, Commander. I'm holding all the cards here." Ava stepped forward, her courtroom confidence evident in every movement. Her voice cut through the tension like a blade. "You're wrong. Your corruption's already exposed. Right now, every move you make determines how many years you spend in prison." The smirk faltered for just a moment before Lewis recovered. "You think threats scare me?" His grip on Zoe tightened further, making her wince. Marcus watched his daughter's face, saw her fighting to stay brave. He channeled his rage into focused calm. "No threats," he said evenly. "A choice. You release Zoe unharmed, and we hand you enough of a head start to run. Or you lose everything, right here, right now." Suspicion clouded Lewis's features. "And why would I trust you?" Marcus caught Ava's eye. The slight nod was barely perceptible, but he saw it. While Lewis focused on Marcus, Ava's hand slipped into her pocket. Her fingers found the small remote Marcus had given her earlier when they'd prepared the area. The click was inaudible, but the effects were immediate. Lewis's radio sputtered and died, along with every other communication device in range. The officer's hand flew to his belt, fumbling with the dead equipment. "What did you do?" Panic cracked through Lewis's authoritative facade. His eyes darted around the station, searching for backup that wouldn't come. Marcus advanced slowly, his movements precise and measured. "We took away your backup. You're isolated, Lewis." "No one's coming." Fear finally broke through Lewis's arrogance. He yanked Zoe backward, preparing to retreat, but Marcus had anticipated this exact moment. Years of combat experience flooded his muscles with practiced precision. Marcus moved like liquid shadow, closing the distance before Lewis could properly react. His first strike targeted Lewis's wrist, breaking the grip on Zoe. The second movement swept Zoe safely aside, where Ava rushed forward to grab her. Lewis threw a wild punch, but Marcus deflected it easily. Each of Marcus's counterstrikes was calculated, designed to disable without causing permanent damage. A precise hit to the solar plexus, a swift sweep of the legs, an expert grapple that brought Lewis face down onto the concrete. The sound of handcuffs clicking shut, Lewis's own cuffs, echoed in the quiet night. Lewis struggled briefly before slumping in defeat, his knees scraping against the rough pavement. Marcus stood over him, every inch the Delta Force commander. Ava held Zoe close, their daughter finally safe in her mother's arms. Moving closer to the defeated officer, Marcus bent down, his voice carrying steel and certainty. "Every piece of evidence, every name involved, it's all in the hands of people you can't control. You never held the cards, Lewis." "We did." Lewis's head dropped, the full weight of his situation crushing his remaining bravado. The corrupt officer's shoulders sagged as the truth sank in. His reign of terror was over, brought down by the very family he'd tried to destroy. Red and blue lights flooded the gas station as FBI vehicles swarmed the area. Special Agent Sarah Chen stepped out of the lead vehicle, her badge gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Behind her, a tactical team moved with practiced efficiency, securing the perimeter. "Commander Johnson," Agent Chen called out, her voice carrying both authority and respect. "We received your evidence transmission. Everything checks out." Marcus kept one foot firmly planted near Lewis, who remained handcuffed on the ground. "Took you long enough," he said, but there was no bitterness in his voice, only relief. Ava held Zoe close as more agents approached, their weapons lowered. The little girl watched with wide eyes as Lewis was hauled to his feet by 2 FBI agents. Officer Daniels, who had been caught trying to flee the scene earlier, was already being led to a transport vehicle. "We've been tracking this corruption network for months," Agent Chen explained, approaching the family. "Your evidence was the final piece we needed. The timestamps, the doctored documents, the recorded conversations, it's all rock solid." News vans began arriving, their bright lights cutting through the darkness. Reporters spilled out, cameras rolling, capturing the moment justice finally caught up with Officer Lewis. The corrupt officer's face twisted with rage as he was led past the media gauntlet. "You can't do this to me!" Lewis shouted, struggling against his restraints. "I have rights." "Yes, you do." Ava stepped forward, her voice carrying the weight of legal authority. "The same rights you denied countless others. The same justice system you corrupted will now hold you accountable." More vehicles arrived, state police, internal affairs, even the FBI director's representative. The gas station transformed into a hub of law enforcement activity, all centered around the Johnson family's vindication. Benjamin Carter appeared from the shadows, nodding respectfully to Marcus before speaking with Agent Chen. He'd been monitoring the perimeter, ensuring no one from Lewis's network could interfere. Now he helped agents identify key players in the corruption scheme. Local community leaders began gathering at the edges of the police tape, drawn by social media alerts about the confrontation. Among them, Marcus recognized faces from their family reunion, relatives who'd been searching for them, praying for their safety. "Mom, look!" Zoe pointed to her phone, which she'd retrieved from Lewis's confiscated belongings. "We're trending everywhere. People are sharing our story." Ava glanced at the screen, tears welling in her eyes. Hashtags demanding justice flooded social media. Video clips of their evidence broadcast had gone viral. Millions were watching, sharing, demanding change. The FBI director's representative, a stern-faced woman named Douglas, approached with an official letter. "Commander Johnson, on behalf of the Bureau and the Department of Justice, I want to formally acknowledge the grave injustice done to you and your family." Marcus accepted the letter, his hand steady. The document detailed his immediate exoneration, the reinstatement of his security clearance, and a formal apology from multiple federal agencies. "There will be a full congressional inquiry," Douglas continued. "Your testimony, when you're ready to give it, will be crucial." Community members began chanting behind the police line, calls for justice, reform, and accountability. News helicopters circled overhead, their spotlights illuminating the growing crowd of supporters. Agent Chen coordinated with her team, collecting final statements and securing evidence. "We've already arrested 3 judges, 2 police captains, and several other officers connected to Lewis's network," she reported. "This goes deeper than anyone suspected." Zoe tugged at her father's sleeve. "Daddy, can we go home now?" Marcus lifted his daughter into his arms, holding her close. "Yes, baby, we can finally go home." The crowd erupted in cheers as the Johnson family walked toward their car. People reached out, offering handshakes, hugs, and words of support. Local pastors, community organizers, and civil rights leaders stepped forward to form a protective circle around them. "The city stands with you," Reverend Jackson, a prominent local leader, declared. "Your courage has opened eyes that were willfully blind for too long." Media requests poured in as reporters clamored for interviews. Ava, ever the skilled attorney, fielded questions with grace while maintaining their right to privacy. "Tonight isn't about interviews," she stated firmly. "It's about justice being served and the work that still lies ahead." The FBI began dismantling their temporary command center as dawn approached. Evidence was catalogued, statements were taken, and transport vehicles carried away the arrested officers. Agent Chen assured the family they would have protection until all threats were eliminated. Community members organized an impromptu prayer circle, their voices rising in hymns of thanksgiving and protection. The Johnson family stood in the center, surrounded by love and support, their ordeal finally ending where it had begun. As the first rays of sunlight painted the sky, Marcus held his family close. The gas station's fluorescent lights seemed dimmer now, overshadowed by the natural light of a new day. Justice had been served, not through violence or vengeance, but through truth, courage, and unwavering determination. The marble halls of the Georgia State Capitol echoed with testimony as Marcus Johnson took the witness stand. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating the packed chamber where legislators, media, and citizens gathered for the public hearings. "Commander Johnson," the committee chairwoman began, "please describe the systematic targeting you encountered." Marcus's voice carried clearly through the chamber. "This wasn't just about me. Officer Lewis and his network specifically targeted Black veterans who spoke out against police misconduct. They fabricated charges, planted evidence, and destroyed careers." In the gallery, Ava sat with Zoe, both wearing formal attire for the proceedings. Zoe clutched her tablet, where she'd been documenting everything in her journal. The 8-year-old had become surprisingly invested in the legal process, often asking sophisticated questions about justice and law. And these falsified national security threats, the chairwoman continued. How widespread was this practice? We've identified 37 cases so far, Marcus replied, consulting his notes. Veterans from multiple branches, all African American, all vocal about police reform. The pattern is undeniable. Behind him, Officer Lewis sat in prison orange, flanked by guards. His former swagger had disappeared, replaced by a defeated slump. Next to him, Officer Daniels had already accepted a plea deal in exchange for his testimony about the corruption network. The hearing room buzzed as evidence was presented. Internal emails, doctored reports, bank records showing bribes. Agent Chen testified about the FBI's investigation, revealing connections to judges, prosecutors, and police leadership across 3 states. This conspiracy reached the highest levels, Agent Chen explained, pointing to a complex organizational chart. Officer Lewis was just the visible face of a much larger operation designed to silence minority veterans who challenged the status quo. Ava's turn at the podium drew intense attention. She'd spent weeks preparing comprehensive reform proposals, drawing on her years of civil rights experience. Her voice rang with passionate conviction as she outlined necessary changes. We need mandatory body cameras with tamper-proof uploads, she declared. Independent civilian oversight boards with real power. And most importantly, we need to end qualified immunity that shields corrupt officers from accountability. The gallery erupted in supportive applause, quickly gavelled to order. Zoe beamed with pride at her mother's commanding presence. Several legislators were already nodding, taking notes on Ava's proposals. During a recess, Benjamin Carter approached the family, now wearing a suit instead of tactical gear. The military community is fully behind you, he reported. Veterans organizations across the country are demanding similar reforms in their states. News cameras captured Officer Lewis being led away after his testimony, his face twisted in anger as reporters shouted questions. His attempt to justify his actions had backfired spectacularly, revealing even more evidence of racial bias and corruption. The system didn't fail, Lewis had snarled on the stand. The system worked exactly as intended, until you people started demanding special treatment. His words, broadcast live across the nation, only strengthened public support for reform. Social media exploded with outrage, and protesters gathered outside police headquarters in cities nationwide. Back in the hearing room, police reform experts presented data showing how accountability measures reduced misconduct and improved community relations. Critics argued the changes would hamper law enforcement, but their objections felt hollow against the mountain of evidence. Look at these statistics, one expert testified, displaying a chart. Departments with strong oversight have fewer complaints, better solve rates, and higher community trust. Reform helps good officers do their jobs better. Zoe watched intently as more witnesses came forward. Other veterans targeted by Lewis's network, families impacted by police misconduct, even honest officers disgusted by the corruption they'd witnessed. She took careful notes, already talking about becoming a lawyer like her mother. The hearings stretched into their second week. Marcus and Ava balanced their testimony with media appearances, becoming the public faces of a growing movement. Their story resonated because it exposed how systemic racism intersected with veteran discrimination and police corruption. This isn't just about police reform, Ava explained during one interview. It's about holding power accountable, protecting those who serve our country, and ensuring equal justice under law. Support came from unexpected quarters. Police unions in other states endorsed the reforms. Military leaders spoke out about protecting veterans' rights. Civil rights organizations provided legal support and grassroots organizing. When the verdict in Officer Lewis's criminal trial came down, the family watched from the courtroom's front row. Multiple felony convictions guaranteed he would spend decades behind bars. Officer Daniels received a lighter sentence for his cooperation, but would never wear a badge again. "The jury has spoken," the judge declared. "This court sentences you to 30 years in federal prison for conspiracy, civil rights violations, kidnapping, and abuse of authority." Lewis showed no remorse, maintaining his defiant glare even as he was led away. But his network had been thoroughly dismantled. Other corrupt officials scrambled to make deals, exposing even more misconduct across multiple jurisdictions. The reform legislation moved swiftly through committees, powered by public demand and overwhelming evidence. Ava worked tirelessly with legislators, refining language and building coalitions. Marcus provided tactical expertise on oversight mechanisms and training requirements. Warm evening light filtered through the windows of the Johnsons' new home in a peaceful Atlanta suburb. The modern two-story house, with its welcoming front porch and spacious backyard, represented more than just a fresh start. It was a symbol of their triumph over injustice. Marcus stood at the kitchen island, chopping vegetables for dinner, while Zoe sat at the counter, working on her social studies homework. The walls were adorned with recent photos: Marcus receiving a Congressional Medal of Honor, Ava speaking at the White House, and Zoe winning her school's Young Leaders Award. "Dad," Zoe asked, looking up from her textbook, "can you help me with my civics project? We're studying how laws get made, and I want to talk about Mom's police reform bill." Marcus smiled, setting down his knife. "Of course, sweetheart. You know, that legislation is already making a difference. Just yesterday, I got a call from another state wanting to implement the same oversight systems." Ava walked in from her home office, carrying a stack of legal briefs. Her new role as executive director of the National Police Accountability Initiative kept her busy. But she always made time for family dinners. Speaking of which, guess who's joining the Civilian Oversight Board? Benjamin Carter. "Uncle Ben?" Zoe perked up. "That's awesome. He always says the best way to fix things is from the inside." The kitchen filled with delicious aromas as Marcus worked on their favorite family recipe: his grandmother's jerk chicken with roasted vegetables. The routine of cooking together had become even more precious after everything they'd been through. "Remember when we could barely eat, hiding out in that farmhouse?" Zoe said, helping her father season the chicken. "Now look at us. We have dinner together every night, and nobody's trying to hurt us anymore." Marcus and Ava exchanged glances, still amazed by their daughter's resilience. The trauma counseling had helped, but Zoe's natural strength and optimism had truly carried her through. "You know what I love most about our new house?" Ava said, setting the table. "The security system is just for normal safety, not because we're running from corrupt cops." They all laughed, able now to find humor in even the darkest moments of their ordeal. The healing process had brought them closer, strengthening bonds that were already unshakable. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from his new team at the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division. As Special Advisor on Veteran Protection and Police Reform, he worked closely with law enforcement agencies nationwide to implement new training protocols. "Another department wants to adopt our program," he announced proudly. "That's 15 states now. The change is really happening." Zoe pulled out her tablet, opening the digital journal she'd kept throughout their journey. She'd recently started turning it into a book with help from her parents. "I'm adding that to my chapter on positive changes," she said, typing quickly. "My teacher says personal stories help people understand big issues better." The dining room windows offered a perfect view of the setting sun, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. They settled around the table, a family tradition that meant even more now. I got another letter from Officer Lewis's daughter today, Ava mentioned, serving the vegetables. She's still apologizing for her father, but I told her again, she's not responsible for his actions. She's actually doing amazing work with police reform advocacy now. That's what real change looks like. Marcus nodded. People learning, growing, and working to be better, even from unexpected places. Zoe arranged her plate carefully, making sure each food had its own space. My friend Maria's mom is joining the police force, she said. She said she was inspired by our story to be part of the solution. The conversation flowed easily as they enjoyed their meal, touching on their days, their plans, their hopes. Marcus shared stories about his latest training sessions with police cadets, teaching them about implicit bias and de-escalation techniques. Ava described her upcoming speaking tour, where she'd be sharing their story and promoting police accountability nationwide. The best part is, I'm not just talking about problems anymore. We're implementing real solutions. Can I come to one of your talks? Zoe asked eagerly. I want to learn everything about being a civil rights lawyer like you, Mom. Of course, baby, Ava smiled. You've already got such a strong sense of justice, just like your father. The kitchen timer chimed, and Marcus retrieved his famous sweet potato pie from the oven. The familiar dessert reminded them of family reunions past, but now carried new meaning, a testament to traditions preserved through adversity. You know what makes me happiest? Zoe said, helping to serve the pie. Seeing you guys smile again. Real smiles, not the worried ones from before. The evening light softened to purple dusk as they lingered over dessert, savoring both the food and the peaceful moment. Through the windows, their neighbors walked dogs or chatted on porches, normal scenes that once seemed impossibly far away. We should invite Benjamin and his family over this weekend, Marcus suggested, refilling water glasses. Maybe have a barbecue, let the kids play in the yard. And we can plan our summer vacation, Ava added. A real one this time, not running from state to state. Zoe's eyes lit up. Can we go to the beach? I've been reading about marine biology in science class. I hope you enjoyed that story. Please share it with your friends and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.